Hi again, gang. Jeff McAleer here, and today I'm providing a review and, of course, a peek at Dungeons of Dread for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. The 4 modules that are contained within were originally written by Gary Gygax and Lawrence Schick. Now, 3 of the modules are written by Gary Gygax, with the 4th written by Lawrence Schick. And this is one of Wizards of the Coast's hardcover reissues that they're putting out. They're premium reissues. It's a really, really nice book. Very, very nicely done. And it includes the 4 S modules which were originally released from TSR for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons back in the late 1970s and early 1980s. So, first off, we're going to take a look inside, and as we're going through, I'll kind of talk about my impressions of this hardcover book. So, opening it up here, the page quality is really nice. Very, very nicely done. I'll zoom in just a little bit here so we can get a better look. There's a quick forward written by Lawrence Schick talking about each of the modules. It's short, but you know what? Pretty entertaining too, to get a little behind the scenes look. Now, the artwork is all reproduced from the original modules as well. So the first module is Tomb of Horrors, and it's an adventure for levels 10 through 14. And I gotta be honest, kids, there is some truth in advertising here, because this is one crazy adventure. Now, it only clocks in at about a little more than 10 pages, really. 12 pages altogether. I know in the review I provided on the Daily Dope, I said it was about 10 pages, a little more than that. It's got some characters as well, and then there's an illustration booklet we'll take a peek at in just a sec. Now, what's going on here is there's a demi-lich, and the adventurers are off to pursue the treasures that's located in his lair. And this was a module that Gary Gygax really took a more realistic approach to. If you were this 1,000-year-old baddie, would you just set up traps and tricks to just stymie the adventurers? No, absolutely not. You would create the most lethal and terrifying traps you possibly could, kill off the adventurers as soon as you could, and terrify anybody who survives so they skedaddle on out, and then go back to whatever evil machinations that you occupy your daily time with anyway. So this is a really, really tough adventure. It's not a lot of combat involved in it, though. And what the reality is, and I remember these modules when they first came out. That's why I really, really like this product here. What will happen with most of the adventurers is they'll act before they think. And all that does is, of course, get them into trouble. So, of course, then there's the illustration booklet, which would have handouts that you would give to the players as they were going along. Some of the artwork, little hit or miss. Some of it's better than others. And I know because this is a hardcover book, a lot of people are thinking, well, gosh, you know, how am I going to be able to give these out as handouts? It's a hardcover book. Pretty tough to scan or photocopy it without, you know, ruining the binding. Well, Wizards of the Coast has made all the illustration booklets for the 4 modules that are in here available as PDF downloads. So, it's just a real blast from the past to take a look through this. And I was really excited to get my hands on this to take a look. So that's the first adventure there. And then we have Module S2. It's White Plume Mountain, and it's from Lawrence Schick. It's one of these really pretty famous modules out there. I think Tomb of Horrors is a bit better known just because of all the craziness that would take place. But I know there's been some novelizations of White Plume Mountain, and it's pretty popular. This is more of a straightforward adventure. The traps and things that are placed in front of the characters aren't as diabolical as in Tomb of Horrors, but it's still pretty classic adventure. What's going on here is there's 3 weapons that the adventurers have been hired to bring back. They were stolen, and really the only clue that they have is a poem that was originally written to the owners of the weapons. And it's kind of funny because one of the weapons, Black Razor, is really a thinly veiled ripoff, actually, of Michael Moorcock's Stormbringer from the Elric of Melniboné novels. But still, pretty cool. The level of artwork improved a little bit, in my opinion, in this module here, as opposed to a lot of the stuff that was available from TSR at the time. There really isn't an illustration handout booklet for this one here. Now, I was so pumped to see Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, because this is a module that, even if you didn't play Dungeons & Dragons, you've probably heard about. And the reason is, it's a mashup between sword and sorcery and science fiction. And the adventurers have been hired to go check out this mysterious cave where all these creatures, these monsters that no one's ever seen before, are emerging from. And they arrive, and in reality, the cave is actually a tear in the hull of a spaceship that's been buried. And there's a little bit of a backstory of how that spaceship got there. And there's loads and loads. This is a big adventure. This is about 70 pages long, and there's 6 levels for the characters to take a look at and explore. And there are robots and monsters that had never been seen before in the D&D world, and one-of-a-kind sci-fi weapons and things like that that they could get. And of course, they would find these things and have absolutely no clue of how to use them without some trial and error. And that was part of a lot of the excitement and fun of this module originally. And as you see some of the illustrations, and of course you'll see that there's the handout booklet as well, you know, does that look like a blaster rifle that you would imagine? Of course not. Does that look like a laser rifle? Of course not. You have no idea. There's an anti-gravity belt and all these other different things that are in here too. And this is a solid adventure. In my opinion, I always thought that the success of this module would be based on really how well the Dungeon Master presented the material. If they are able to keep the mystery and wonder level high, then it would be a complete riot for people to play. A more novice GM, maybe not so much. They'd maybe give away a little too much, because part of the fun of the module is that you're looking at, fantasy characters, wizards and thieves and warriors and so on and so forth. And would they actually know what these things were? Would they understand how to use a card to get into a room, a swipe card, and things like that? So, of course, there's the illustration booklet, which I always thought the artwork in this was pretty darn good. So we'll flip through this here. Now, I have to point out that the impact of this module was probably much higher back in the day it was released. The adventure itself was originally written for the science fiction role-playing game Metamorphosis Alpha, and then Gary Gygax rewrote it to fit into the Dungeons & Dragons, or I should say Advanced Dungeons & Dragons framework. But as you can see, really, really cool art. And pretty soon we'll see the famous wolf in sheep's clothing, if I remember correctly. Here we go. Yes, this is what the characters see. Oh, look, it's a little bunny, and oh, but that's what it really is. Holy cow. So yeah, I honestly remember there were people who, complained about the module. They thought, there shouldn't be science fiction stuff mashed up with Dungeons and Dragons. To me, come on, it's loads of fun. It was a one-time kind of thing. So like I said, they're really super long modules, especially when you start looking at the various different images and stuff, and the level layouts. So very, very cool. Like I said, I was so pumped to see this module again. I hadn't seen it in, about 30 years. Then the fourth module is the Lost Caverns of Tsojcanth. I'm probably mispronouncing that anyway. I have to say this is probably the weakest of the modules in the book itself. This, in my opinion, really is the type of adventure that puts the hack in hack and slash. And I know there are a lot of people who are out there who dig that, especially newer players to role-playing games. It's kill the monsters, take the stuff, just like Munchkin, right? I was never a huge fan of that kind of gaming. I was more into role-playing as opposed to role-playing. And this really is kind of a Monty Hall sort of thing where it's really a super long module. And the players will actually traverse huge amounts of real estate in this game. And effectively, it's 4 different dungeons. There's caverns and stuff, but we'll call them dungeons anyway, that they explore before they even get to the payoff. So this is a module that would have taken, and back in the day, you have to remember, many times an adventure module, you could play weeks or months running Call of Cthulhu, and of course, granted, we're talking about Advanced Dungeons and Dragons here, but the Masks of Nyarlathotep module, my friends can attest. We played that. That ran us, that campaign, about 6 months, 7 months. And we played a lot. I mean, we got together probably 3 times a week, at least, to roleplay Call of Cthulhu. So I thought it was pretty interesting to go through this book and see, the old school style of modules. Now, this one has a little more backstory, a little more detail in it, but especially like Tomb of Horrors, where it was only the 12 pages, it was kind of pretty cut and dried. Here's what's here, here's what's here, here's what's in this room, where today's role-playing games have a lot more backstory, a lot more build-up. But it's also a nice throwback, too, to the days where it was the GM who called the shots. And I know nowadays there's a lot of different role-playing systems which are kind of a conglomeration of the person running the game as well as the players are kind of creating the story on the fly. These aren't the case. This is basically the dungeon master tells you what's going on and you react. So there were a lot of new monsters that were included in Module S4 going through. Like I said, this isn't a bad adventure. It's just pretty standard stuff. And we've seen adventures like this by the hundreds published over the decades. But it is a nice primer for people who are looking to put together just kind of a hack and slash Monty Hall sort of adventure for their players. And it's funny because by the time this adventure's over, the characters would need a baggage train to carry all the loot that they score. So we'll just finish up with the last few pages. And the other thing is the payoff's a little weak in this adventure too. Smart players see it coming kind of a mile away. So there we have it. Now this clocks in at 192 pages, and it is carrying a manufactured retail price of $39.99, which I have to be honest, I think is just a touch high. It's a great book, fantastic. 4 modules that are in here. 3 of them are great. 1 is good, but still a little bit pricey. I have seen this on Amazon for around $25 or so, so that might be an avenue that you want to take if you're going to pick up Dungeons of Dread. Some pros in my opinion: once again, really nice quality. Everything that Wizards is doing as far as their hardcover reissues have been really nice. It's got tons of nostalgic value. I had these modules back in the day, and long gone, like 95% of the gaming stuff I had back then. And it's a really good primer for people to take a look at as far as being able to design their own adventures, and seeing 3 of them by the man who, we can say is one of the founders of role-playing. It's pretty cool. Some cons, like I said, the price point's a little high, and it's not going to appeal to people who like to play games that are more seat of your pants, let's create it together, as this is classic, old school adventure modules. Overall, I'm giving Dungeons of Dread a 9.5 out of 10. Once again, this is Jeff McAleer. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next time. And until then, be sure to swing over to thegaminggang.com for all the latest in genre news and reviews. Thanks a lot.